Good evening, good afternoon, good night, wherever you are in the world. Hello, and welcome to this month's OM System Ask Me Anything session. Wonderful of you to join us all. We've got lots of people in tonight, and it's really good to see you all. Looking through the comments, and I always love looking at where you're from. We have Miami and Washington and Brazil and the UK. It's just all over the world, and it always makes me feel really nice that the global family always joins together in these sessions. So wonderful of you to join us. Tonight's session is all about pro capture. And we have two amazing technical experts to help us with this topic. Firstly, we have Tomas from the Czech Republic. Hey, Tomas.
Hi, Claire. Hi, everyone.
Hey, how are you doing?
Good. So far, so good. All good in Czech.
And all ready for tonight's session.
Yeah.
Absolutely. We also have the awesome Tito Garcia from Spain. Hey, Tito.
Hey, Claire. How are you? How are you, Tomas? Hi, everyone from Madrid, from Spain. Glad to see you again.
Oh, it's lovely to see you. And in the background, we have the awesome Michaela hailing from the States. She's doing all the back end stuff for us today. And want to say a big thank you to her, because without all that back end stuff working, none of the front end stuff looks pretty, and Michaela knows exactly how to work it out. And if you watched the last session, I was pressing all sorts of random camera buttons. So Michaela, we're in good hands. We're in good hands. So if you have any questions about Pro Capture, put them in the comments. The plan tonight is, as we do most nights, is we go through all the Pro Capture questions first and answer them as best we can. Most of the time, we're pretty good at that. And then at the end, if there's any spare time, or if there are any few minutes left, then we'll go back over the non-Pro Capture questions and try and get through as many as possible. But let's talk about Pro Capture. I mean, let's talk about this time traveling feature that the innovators and the R&D guys at Olympus / OM System invented. It's an absolutely incredible tool if you are doing birds in flight or wildlife, where you're always going to be shooting or photographing things that have you don't know what their patterns are. You don't know if they're going to jump out of the bush. You don't know when the action's going to happen. And it always means that you get the shot. So we're going to go through some images. We're going to go through setup, and we're also going to do a couple of little demonstrations as well. So, keep your eyes out. This is always recorded and put onto YouTube, so you can always go back and watch it again later if you want some setup tips. But we're really excited about it. So let's just let you know. So human reaction times are basically 0.5%. All right, 0.5 seconds. So if you think of a footballer, a goalie standing in goal, and a penalty taker, they're just about to kick the ball, you'll always notice that the goalie will always go one way or the other way before the ball has left the spot. And that's because human reaction time is about 0.5 seconds. So it doesn't sound like a lot of time, but in wildlife terms, that could mean the difference between the bird taking off and you getting all those beautiful shots, or just an image where there's nothing, right? So the idea of Pro Capture is, it's as your finger is half pressed on the shutter, it's buffering images. Okay, it's taking one, dropping one, taking one, dropping one. And then as you fully press the shutter, those ones that are in the buffer are then dropped to the card, plus a load of images after. So that's the sort of basic sort of outline in a nutshell. But I'll tell you what we should do. Let's have a look, Thomas, at a couple of beautiful Pro Capture images. This is the sort of thing you can get with Pro Capture. This is the exciting stuff.
We will definitely have a look. I just wanted to remind you guys one thing. Maybe you don't know if you are new with OM System or Olympus, but basically we have invented this feature for cameras like 15, 18 years ago.
I know.
And it was a camera called E100RS. RS was for rapid speed. And in that time, we could capture like 4 images into the past. When you were like fully pressing the trigger, you had 4 images into the past, and everybody was so excited about actually getting the image. but it was only 4 into the past.
I know.
Now with OM1 Mark II, you can actually get 99 images prior fully pressing the trigger. So that is how much it dropped. But Olympus has actually invented this feature for let's say standard cameras. But definitely, I'm going to the pictures.
Yeah, and obviously, like you said, I mean, it's one of those things where other manufacturers are trying to do what we're doing, but they're very much behind. So talk us through this image, Thomas.
I mean, basically, I have a setup from 2 ambassadors. I do have some of my own as well, but I mean, this is from Rostislav Stach, who is an OMSystem ambassador, a great wildlife photographer, and this is obviously in Alaska. But this image, you probably have seen a couple of images like this already. But this is exactly the moment you can expect to happen, but you don't know the friction of a second in which the salmon is going to jump, into the mouth of the bear standing and waiting for it. So this is exactly the moments or the shots that you would definitely use the Pro Capture for, because you have the camera in your hand, you have half pressed the trigger, you keep it half pressed all the time, and then at the moment something happens, you fully press it. But that actually means that with OM1 Mark II, you have you can have, we'll later on to show you how to set it up, but you can have 99 images into the past, which can actually cover something like 5-6 seconds prior you fully press the trigger, which is something amazing. Yeah, these are just a couple of other shots where the pelican was shaking, again, you were waiting for it. And some other ones. Obviously, this is something that wildlifers and bird photographers are using for nesting birds in general, for either feeding birds, when this toucan, not toucan, how it's called. I know it in Czech. I don't know it in English. Sorry.
Say it in Czech. That's fine.
But anyhow, this bird is apparently feeding its youngsters because it's having a tiny little bug in its beak, right? So it's bringing the food to its youngsters, and the same thing for birds which are flying out of the nest, So again, the feeding happening. One thing which I would just like to point out, because many of you are shooting this type of images, but we should also be kind of aware not only of just getting the image, no matter what it costs, but we should be careful about the nature. We should be definitely careful about nesting birds in general, because we may accidentally, if we don't know how to behave when shooting in nature, we can accidentally, cause some bad things, like the next year maybe the birds will not come back again or something like that. So please be careful when doing these kind of shots in the nature in general. It doesn't only count for birds, but obviously also for mammals and
you're right, stuff. Thomas, use the long lenses, stay away from the nests. It's this time of year, especially, there's a lot of nests, lots of fledglings, lots of eggs, it's so important that we promote looking after nature, go photograph it, but leave it untouched, right?
Absolutely.
That's
so
nice
there are some other shots. This is the one I was talking about. Now we have it here from the side. Basically, the bird just leaving the nest, right? And this is something that if you were using film in the past, which I'm sure many of you have been shooting on the film cameras in the past, this would take you for ages, and you would probably spend many films before you actually got one shot. Then obviously with digital cameras, it got much easier, but still much easier in the way that you would be shooting thousands of images in the sequential shooting, and accidentally from time to time you would be able to catch the right shot. But now with the Pro Capture function, again, you will every single time when you use Pro Capture, you will get one of these shots. So it's not like, do I get the image, but which one do I choose? Because I have so many of them, So this is the series from one of my ambassadors, but also as we are talking about the friction of a moment for Pro Capture, let me just show you some other thing which it's very useful for, and that is lightnings, flash lightnings. Beautiful. Basically. So if there is a storm, you can actually capture with the Pro Capture functionality. You can capture the lightning even during daylight. This is the daylight, but obviously it got slightly darker because there were clouds on the sky and so on. The second shot is the same or similar one. And you can use Pro Capture for this, because every single time you will get the lightning in your shots. So you will choose one of these images from the sequence you're shooting from the Pro Capture.
They're beautiful.
But if you want to capture more lightnings in one shot, then it's a different feature. I know we should be talking about Pro Capture today only, but I think it's very valid. And these other shots are obviously shot at night. And you can see that there is much more lightning. So it's not just like one fraction of a second. It's a long time exposure during which the lightnings were actually happening on the sky. And for that one, you will not use Pro Capture, but you will use live composite mode, which is the mode which we use for long exposures and so on. So I think this is definitely another type of feature which your camera, which you are using, whether it's OM5, OM1, Mark 1, Mark 2, EM series, obviously, they all have this feature. So you should be able to use or actually capture these kind of shots as well with live composite mode.
Beautiful. Okay, so we're going to, now we've whet your appetite with some incredible images, we're going to answer a few questions so that we can sort of, at least, because there's quite a few starred questions in the lineup, and then we're going to look at a little demonstration and then actually set up in the camera. Okay, so let's start with some questions. The first one is, and I remember to put it up, hello, I use Pro Capture SH2 and would like to know what you recommend for the autofocus target mode and metering mode. Tito, over to you. What do you think?
Okay, it will always depend on the subject, the motion of the subject. What are you going to shoot? Because you can use, as Tomas has said, you can use the Pro Capture function for birding, for wildlife, for storms, for kids smiling, so it depends on that. Difference between SH2 and SH1 is mainly that in SH2 you will have continuous autofocus, and SH1 you will have single autofocus. Depending on if you expect that the subject moves the focal plane, moves and changes the focal plane, it's recommendable to use SH2, continuous autofocus. But if you can foresee that the subject will not change the focal plane, you can use SH1. SH1 has more frames per second. The burst is longer. You can on the OM1 Mark II you can even have 120 frames per second, and the SH2 you can have maximum 50. Recommend the AF target mode depends also. It's not different than regular modes of shooting, because it will also depend on the subject size, subject motion, and
whether you're
speed,
using AI. Maybe you're using AI, right? Maybe you're using bird detect, or
you can use subject detection,
right,
of course, and the metering mode, same thing. I will say Pro Capture is a function where you can take pictures in advance. You can use the time machine. It's like time machine, but the exposure, the composition, the metering mode, the AF is not different than regular modes.
Exactly. So, I mean, I always use all metering mode. I do find that it's so good on the OM. It really is. It meters so many areas of the sensor at the time that unless you're specifically needing spot metering, then the whole the evaluative for the whole screen and sensor, I feel, is pretty spot on. So I would, in the normal circumstances, use all metering. Only specifically spot metering very, very rarely, because spot metering only meters for 2% of the image. So that would be my recommendation on the metering mode. And as I said, the AF target mode will depend on whether if you're using birds or an OM1 or an OM1 Mark II on EM1X, then you would use the subject detection option, which sort of overrides the AF target in that respect. So I hope that helps.
Let me say, Claire, because just to clarify that we don't have Pro Capture only on the OM1 Mark II or OM1. Right. We have that function in the OM5. We have that function in the TG7, even in the compact camera, and previous models like EM1X. So the AF target mode, for example, if you're using the subject detection mode in the EM1X is mandatory to use the CAF plus tracking. But if you're using OM1 or OM1 Mark II, you don't need CAF plus tracking, because you can use any target mode. So depending on the model, the configuration will also change.
Exactly. Good stuff. Thank you, darling. Okay, let's have
basically. Sorry to jump in. Basically, the CAF tracking is not even possible to combine with subject detection in OM1 Mark II, which is like a great improvement, because I take CAF tracking and subject detection and automatic auto AI detection modes like a different versions, like the older one, which was CAF tracking. This is the old type of tracking whatever subject it was. And AI detection, it's much more sophisticated, much better. So basically, the combination of these two was like, it was wrong. So now it's not even possible to set these up together, which is good. So OM1 Mark II improved this perfectly.
You're absolutely right. The EM1X was the early version of our subject detection, and there was things that have now since been improved and have got better in the OM series, and that's exactly one of them. So yes, good stuff. Right, let's move on. Gigafish from Maryland, interested in Pro Capture, where you can get compositions where you wouldn't think there'd be one. Well, this is exactly right. And Thomas has showed you some of those images, and we will be showing you more. So keep your eyes peeled. Excuse me. Okay, this is a good question. Is the combination of CAF plus high speed 2 or CAF plus Pro Capture high speed 2 incompatible with the 100 to 400? I mean, the answer is it should work, right? I mean, I don't see why it doesn't.
There will be the limitation of 50 frames per second, though.
Right.
Exactly. Yeah. The maximum will be 25.
Yeah, 25 frames a second. And the same if you're putting a Panasonic lens on or another brand's lens on, you won't get those top end speeds. It will drop down. And maybe that's what you're thinking of, is that, you're not getting the high speed with the, with that lens. So there are a couple of lenses that will only give you 25, and all the Panasonics as well won't give you those top 50 and 120. So you do need to be mindful of that. Hope that.
But again, this is a great improvement of OM1 Mark II compared to the previous model, let's say, because previously you could only set up 25 or 50 frames per second in SH2 mode, while now you can actually slow down. So you can have the 12.5, 16.7, 25, or even 50 with compatible lens. If the lens is not compatible, then you end up at 25. But we have like 3 different options, because sometimes 50 is too many. Even 25 is too many pictures, So you want to slow down.
I think it's interesting because I remember when I first started with Pro Capture, I had the maximum amount of shots that you could get. But then once you start using it and start learning a bit more about the parameters, you don't always need to put it on the biggest bursts, right? And this was the one thing some of our ambassadors in the UK said: lower frame rates. We know what we're doing. We don't need 400, 100 shots of the same thing. And so introducing these lower frame rates in the OM1 Mark II has been a really good feature, I think.
And imagine, guys, or don't forget, guys, go back few years only, like 3-4 years. The top high-end DSLR cameras, they used to have like 10, maximum 12 frames per second. And it was like the most expensive cameras in the world, And now the 12 is like the lowest. So we can get up to 120 frames per second easily with raw data.
It is crazy. The fact, as soon as you take a physical mirror out of the camera, because you've got to wait for that mirror to physically flap up and down. As soon as you take that mirror away, and we're in the world of mirrorless and electronics, the world is our oyster. R&D makes some incredible innovations by taking a mirror out of a camera, and it's completely changed. It's changed everything. It's changed the market. It's changed DSLRs. It's changed photography. New genres of photography like Pro Capture, like live comp, like focus stacking, and that's all taking that mirror box away from the cameras. So good stuff. And again, that means speed. Okay, let's talk to Barry West. Barry says, "Hi, I'm having issues with getting pin sharp images in Pro Capture 2. I use a low f-stop and push the shutter as fast as I can with auto ISO. I use the Zuko 150, 40 to 150. Okay, so we need to know what camera really, don't we? Do you think?
First of all, because of the sensor, obviously, if it's like the E series, there we used to have a different type of sensor. It's not the stacked type of sensor which we are using since OM1, and obviously now OM1 Mark II, which is much better as for the details, the noise, and ISO, obviously. And second thing is, we have just had a YouTube stream, obviously it was in Czech yesterday, and Peter Bambosa, who is a local ambassador, he was showing us images with 30,000 ISO and higher, so with very, very high ISO. But it just went down through the either Photoshop or Lightroom, simply through auto intelligent or AI noise reduction. And guys, I mean, don't be afraid of noise with our cameras at all, because all these new software features, these AI software will simply get you rid of all the noise. There's like no color noise. It keeps the detail. It keeps the sharpness. So, I mean, just take the image, make it through either the latest Lightroom, Photoshop, or any other. There's many other softwares which actually can destroy this kind of, let's say, not very high quality of ISO at the first sight, and you will get a perfect image, which you wouldn't even dream of.
So Barry's saying that he's having issues getting pin sharp images in Pro Capture 2. He's using the OM1. So do we think then that he should like lower his frame rate, make sure it's on CAF? Because obviously in Pro Capture 2 it's not CAF. You've got to be mindful that you can't use CAF with the highest of images. It's only gonna autofocus on that first image. So
yeah, I will also say, Claire, I'm thinking about, because if you're using Pro Capture SH2,
right,
and you have continuous autofocus, and you are using a low f-stop, so that means that you have enough depth of field, and you have the 40 to 150 Pro lens. I will say that are we talking about blur images, out of focus images, or maybe blur images because of the motion, because the speed is not enough?
Right. We'll find out. Barry, I'm sure we'll pop the rest of that in and then we can go back to that. I think that's probably the way forward. Barry, put some more info in and we can come back to that one. Okay, let's go to YT Doofy. When shooting with Pro Capture at higher ISOs, doesn't the image become noisier like it happens when using electronic shutter versus mechanical shutter? Well, this is what we just talked about, Thomas, didn't we?
Yeah. I mean, you use either Lightroom, Photoshop, or DxO, you know, DxO software. I mean, it really gets rid of all the noise. It, as I said, it keeps details, it keeps sharpness. I mean, obviously, the very first important thing is the picture needs to be focused. If it's not properly focused in the right place, usually bird eye or whatever you are shooting, then obviously no other software, no software will get you a proper image. But if it's perfectly focused, if it's pinpoint sharp, then and it's noisy, don't worry. The noise you can get rid of via these
I would say there are three very important factors when we talk about noise at high ISO. One of them is the sensor, another one is the processor, and also the AI noise reduction software. Obviously, OM1 Mark II, because it is a very, very advanced sensor, backlighting sensor, and the latest version of our processor, and also workspace is great, reducing noise at higher. So I would say I don't have at hand, but I have images taken with the OM1 Mark II at 12,800, even 25,600 ISO, better images than 6,400 3, 4, 5 years ago.
Yeah. Without a doubt.
Don't be afraid. Don't be afraid about that.
Yeah. If you're using the OM1 or OM1 Mark II, you definitely have that opportunity to go way beyond what you went before. You know, we used to sort of max out at about 6,000 ISO safely, but you know, like you both said, there's some really incredible software programs. You have Topaz, you have DxO, you have Workspace, you have Lightroom. So most of the software can accommodate for reducing noise. And listen, every camera creates noise. It's not just a Micro Four Thirds thing. It's a 35mm sensor thing. It's a Fuji sensor thing. So, let's just clarify. It isn't just, it's a digital image processed digitally. So of course, it is going to be completely different. And there is always that opportunity for artifacts like noise. But it's available on every sensor size.
Yeah,
let's bust that myth.
As an answer, a proper answer, obviously, the higher ISO will be a bit noisier. It will be noisier than lower ISO, no doubt. But I will say, if you need 10,000, 4,000 of a second, if you need to work f3.5, and you need, don't be afraid in coming up with the ISO.
Okay.
Take the shot.
Okay, this is back of the camera time, guys. So Sean says, hi, we have our first air show this weekend in San Javier. I think I've maybe pronounced that right.
Javier, I think it's in Spain. San Javier is
San
an airport in Alicante, in Spain. Yeah, in the southeast of Spain.
Any advice on Pro Capture settings for jets, prop planes and helicopters? I mean, you don't need to be shooting top end with something like this, do you? What do you think? Because I suppose unless you're trying to capture the, what do you call it? The flames coming out of the back of the jets. Oh my gosh, I've really embarrassed myself by not saying the right words. But, if you want to capture flames coming out of the jets, obviously that's good for Pro Capture. But actually, they travel quite slowly in the sky. So Pro Capture, when they're normally flying, I probably wouldn't use. But for those moments like the jets going and stuff like that, what sort of settings would you use?
Yeah, Claire, I think maybe Sean is thinking about, because in the air shows you can track, you can follow the planes, you can follow the airplanes, but also they make acrobats. So maybe they make, I'm not an expert, but yes, maybe they make acrobat flip-flops or loopings, and if you don't know when they will be doing that acrobat, you need Pro Capture. Yeah. So in the choreography, if you don't know the choreography, you need Pro Capture. So in this case, I will say use the as fast shutter speed as you can, because they suddenly turn plane, they change the movement, they change the flying very, very quickly, and you need to be fast. Because
but you're going to want to use. Yeah, I mean, you're going to want to use lower rates so you can use CAF, right? Because obviously it's going to be quite important to keep the frame rates down to enable the focus to use CAF rather than SAF, right?
Yeah, one of the most important things in the Pro Capture mode is to calculate how many images you want in the pre-release buffer and how many frames per second you want in the burst, because it will define the reaction time, your reaction time. For example, if you use 50 frames per second and you use 25 frames in the pre-buffer, in the pre-release, you only will have half of the seconds to react. But in the reverse, if you use 50 frames per second and you bring 100 images, 99 images in the pre-release, you will have 2 seconds to react. Yeah. That's tricky, but that's the way of working the program.
I'm wondering, Claire, maybe you can show this, what Tito is describing. Yeah. Maybe you can show it in the menu. Shall I put the menu on?
Yes, please do. Thomas, get the menus out and let's have a look at exactly the setup parameters of Pro Capture.
Yeah, and if we have time, I can make a home demo.
Yeah.
And then we'll see the demo. Yeah, perfect. Okay, well, basically, first thing you want to do is obviously you need to set it up here. So by pressing OK button, you get this control panel. And in the control panel, you want to choose either, for example, for the planes, as you are asking about the planes, I wouldn't necessarily use the Pro Capture, but you might, but it's not, I don't think it's necessary. So for that, you could only use the SH2 sequential shooting without the Pro Capture functionality. But if we are talking about Pro Capture, then you go and find one of the Pro Captures. And there are three modes for ProCapture, ProCapture SH1 and SH2. As Martin described already, SH1 basically cannot use continuous autofocusing. So it's for subjects which are in one and the same spot and they are moving there. So the distance does not move from the camera to the subject. While if you are shooting planes, obviously, or animals or birds, you would want to use either ProCapture, which can use CAF, which you can see I can turn it on. Okay. If I switch to ProCapture SH1, you immediately saw that it switched to SAF. You see, I'm switching
which is great.
And then if I go to ProCapture SH2, again, I can use it together with CAF. Right. Obviously, in the case of planes, you would definitely want to use the plane subject detection. If you are shooting birds, mammals, you just choose any other of them. Okay, so let's leave the planes there. So this is the basic setup, which you do via control panel. But then what you want to do is you want to go to the menu. And in the menu, in the first yellow, or at least I see it yellow, maybe some of you sees this like kind of greenish.
Yellow-green.
Yellow-green.
yeah. Because to me, this is green and this is yellow. But I know it differs, right? We have different eyesights. But anyhow, you want to go to the yellow part, and then you want to switch to the 7th chapter, and there is the setup of sequential shooting. If you press OK button now, you are right in this page where you can set up all the kind of sequences. So the first 4 is just the setup of regular sequential shooting, and the last 3 are the ProCapture ones, as we described. So the ProCapture, just the very basic one, is the one where you can only set up the maximum 20 frames per second. But we are talking about faster ones, or the ones where you want to be more advanced. And that would be ProCapture SH2, which you can still use with continuous autofocusing system. And if you go in, we've got like 3 different options what to do. First of all, you can set up maximum frames per second. I mean, this is the sequential rate, which, as I said, OM1 Mark II has 4 options. The first OM1 had 25 and 50. And obviously, again, I'm just reminding, some lenses would not be working with 50. So this would be grayed out. And you would only have the option of 25, and 16, 7, and 12.5. So this is one thing you choose. If you want to take a picture of something that doesn't last long, that it's like maybe 1 second, 2 seconds event or happening, but it's going to be very fast. For example, hummingbird. Imagine a hummingbird coming to a flower. So this happens very fast. It just flies in, feeds, and flies out. So it takes 1 to 2 seconds. In that case, I would rather use fast frames per second so that I have as many shots as possible. And then I will choose just 1 or 2 which suit me best. But if I'm shooting planes, for example, or even flying birds, because they don't fly so fast, like flying eagle or flying pelican and stuff like that, I would rather slow down to either 16 or 12. So this is what is set up. And then what you can do, you can actually set the pre-shutter frames. What does it mean? You can see there's number 12, and also on the button, there's this symbol of shutter button in almost in the middle. And left from this symbol, there's number 12, but I can switch it to, with OM1 Mark II, up to 99, which is like sorry, you have seen it only went to 50. Why? I'm talking about 99. The reason is frame counter limiter, because I limited the maximum number of frames which will be shot in ProCapture to 50. But I can raise this up, obviously. So I can either turn it off, and in that case, I can raise this up to 99. That's one of the options. One few more. Okay, here we are. And now I will have 99 images prior I fully pressed the trigger, which was 70 on OM1, and it was, I think, as far as I remember, 35 on E-series cameras like E1 Mark II, Mark III, E1X, and so on. So now it's 99 images which you can shot or get into your card prior you fully pressed the trigger. So this is basically how you set it up, and it's so easy.
Yeah. And then, like you say, it just shoots to infinity, so you can just keep going. I mean, it is a lot of shots, 99 before, and you do learn to cut those images down a bit, don't you? Because obviously, You've got to think about decent cards. You know, let's talk about SD cards quickly, because there was that question from Wayne Ross, which leads us into this subject of, if you're going to use high-speed frame rates in Pro Capture or in any of the electronical shutter type features, then speed of card has to be really important, right? Because you want the card to keep up with the camera as much as possible, and those cards change their technology. They get better and better every few months, so it's quite an expensive process, but you definitely need UHS 2. Both slots in the OM1 and OM1 Mark II are UHS 2, and that means it's got two strips of contact on the back instead of one, which I have. So this is a single there you go. Tito's got one. Come back a bit. This is a single one, and Tito's is a UHS 2. Talk to me about speed of cards, guys. What do you use when you're doing birds in flight, Tito?
I will usually use 300 megs per second Lexar and SanDisk cards. And also, I will say that it's different if you're using OM5 or EM1s or TG7 than if you're using OM1, because of the buffer. The speed of the car will define how long you have to wait till all of the images are saved. But the OM1 and OM1 Mark II will allow you to review images while the camera is saving images. That's important to know. In older models, we had to wait until the camera saved all of the images. But I will say 90, 150 megs per second will be enough.
Yeah, there's some good V90 cards out now. The classes of the cards get better and better every year. You will be spending at least €100 if you want a decent card, or $100, whatever. But it is quite important that you can try and get the fastest card you can if you're going to use those high frame rates, because what you don't want is to, I mean, like you said, the buffer on the OM1 Mark II is, you know, a lot bigger than the OM1, but also you don't want to be, if you're using E-series like EM1 Mark III or so on, then that buffer is slower. And what you don't want is to be missing the action, right? So if your camera is slowed down by the card, that's going to give you sort of detrimental results. So do try and get the best card you can, literally 300 megabytes a second minimum. The V90s, UHS 2, class 10s. I think that's it. Yeah. So, and buy good branded cards as well. That's the other thing.
Yeah, my experience, Claire, with the 300 megs per second, I was in a height shooting birds for 3 hours, 100%, 100% using Pro Capture, and the camera never collapsed. Never.
Yeah, perfect. This is what I love. Brilliant. Okay, Wayne, we hope that answers your question. We'll have one more question, and then we're going to go to a little demo, because it's already 20 to 8. Time flies when you're enjoying yourself. Susan says, hello, Susan, hope you're well. I have Pro Capture set up on a custom mode on my OM1, but if I change the mode dial to another custom mode, it is stuck in Pro Capture according to my super control panel. Well, Susan, you have to set up each custom mode for a different thing. If you're going from one custom mode to another custom mode, it means that second custom mode is also set up for Pro Capture. So you basically need to keep Pro Capture in one custom mode, and then sort of almost clear the other options, right? Yeah.
Clear the other options, and obviously, maybe one of the easiest way is divide your C1 to C4 custom modes by genres. Let's say you are a birder, you want to shoot birds, but then also the birds themselves, you want to shoot them sitting, like on the bush or on a tree, and you want to shoot them flying. So this is like two totally different options or setups of the camera. So if you set up one for birds in flight, which would be exactly this Pro Capture, continuous shooting, you know, for fast sequential shooting and so on, and fast shutter speeds, obviously. And then if you just want to shoot some portraits of the birds, then that would be a different setup. and just record them into the camera and have them ready. So again, it very much depends on what type of genre you want to shoot, and I mean, the ones that you are using most, I would put them on C modes. On the
I mean, I was going to just jump in there and say Susan does say if she changes it to another custom function, it's stuck in Pro Capture according to the Super Control Panel. So in that second custom mode, you should be able to come out of Pro Capture. Like, you should be able to go into the Super Control Panel and move it from Pro Capture to single shot. So when you say stuck, it would be stuck if it's set up in the custom mode, but you can still move those parameters. There you go. She's got it. Thanks. But I got an answer from Lisa. All custom modes are ready. Thanks, Michaela. Michaela's reading on. I'm not reading on. Thanks, Michaela. She's done it. Right. Okay. We're going to do a demo. Let's do a demo, Thomas. Let's do a demo. Let's talk about.
All right. I need to pick up my phone. Okay.
Yeah. So this is a really interesting demo and shows you how much time you can get. So let's Thomas to take over now.
Okay. So one thing I just need to check out what I actually set up. So I do have the CIF Pro Capture SH2. It's okay. Here, as I'm not shooting plane, I will just turn this off because I don't really need to shoot.
You have no planes at home, right?
No planes at home. No mammals, no birds around. Unfortunately, it's just going to be my smartphone with this clock. And one more thing which I need to check is, because what I want to show you guys is that basically, if you are using Pro Capture SH2 and you want to go down with the sequential shooting, which would be, I would be using the lowest one, which is 12.5 frames per second. You can actually memorize or you can actually capture more than 5 to 6 seconds into the past. What I'm going to do is, I'll just explain first and then I will do it. I'm going to half press the trigger. Obviously, I'll push this button on my smartphone. You will see the clock running. And once there is 10 seconds on the clock of my smartphone, I will fully press the trigger. And then we will watch how many seconds into the past the camera was actually able to record. So I'm going to do it now. In the left button corner, once I half press the trigger of my button, of my shutter button on my camera, in the left button corner, you will see this kind of green, it looks like recycling symbol, but it's actually a symbol which shows that the Pro Capture is running. Okay, so I'm pushing it now. Now I am half pressing the trigger, so you can see the green symbol.
The green light and the round arrow keys.
I will fully press it. Now, so I fully press the trigger. I can turn off my phone now. Left upper corner, actually, there is this red blinking SD card symbol, which shows you that it's recording. Obviously, it was 99 images, so it's recorded now. And now if I look into the images which I shot, we can actually go and see how many images or how many seconds into the past I was able to go to. So, so I went to 3.36. Obviously, I'm not a robot, so I probably did not press it exactly at, what was it?
Yeah, but you have traveled 7 seconds to the past.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying. So even though you pressed the shutter at 9, 10 seconds. Like,
I probably pressed it somewhere around here. Somewhere around here. But I don't know when exactly, obviously. As I said, I'm not a robot. I cannot press it exactly at 10 seconds. Somewhere around here, I pressed it. But the images which we can see were recorded like 6 or more, 7 seconds into the past. So with this type of feature, if you slow down, the sequential shooting, to 12.5 frames per second or 16.7, you are actually able to get more seconds from the past. If you go to 50 frames per second and you have maximum 99 images, then obviously you would only be shooting roughly 2 seconds into the past, not more than that. But if you slow it down, so it very much, again, depends on the subject that you are shooting. For example, if you would be shooting, as I mentioned before, the hummingbirds, which I'm just going to quickly show you as soon as it turns on. Okay, sorry, here it is. So if you are shooting hummingbirds, Feeding, as I described before, for that one, you would definitely want to be using faster sequences, like at least 25, maybe 50 frames per second. This is yet another image from our ambassador, Peter Bambosek, who has just returned from Ecuador, I think. And he's going to have a live stream about Ecuador in English as well later on.
It's such a good demonstration to show that, like you say, that time travel, because you've pressed the shutter fully. All right, you're pro capturing all that time. As soon as you press the shutter fully, you've gained all those extra shots, and it's a really good example. Now, Tito.
Yeah.
Why don't we show your little demonstration?
Yeah. Okay. I will try to show you. I have here. You see, this is my loved assistant, Willie. Okay, and here, this is a jumping ball. Inside the ball, there is a suction cups. So, if I go to the camera and I have configured the ProCapture SH2 as Tomas explained before. If I go to the menu, just to be sure, sequential shooting settings, in the ProCapture SH1, I will use SH1.
Okay.
I have 120 frames per second with 30 frames, pre-shutter frames, and a limitation to 50. The count limiter is in 50. So that means that I will have a quarter of a second to react. Okay.
Yeah.
So let me, and also the exposure, the shutter speed is 10,000 of a second because the ball will jump very fast, and I have 3200 ISO. So I go here, ProCapture SH1. Let me change to SH1. Okay, and I will.
I'm waiting.
Switch the light on. Okay.
Right.
And I'm focusing on the ball. Okay. So I don't know when the ball will jump, because now I will press the ball. It's not easy because I'm alone here. And now you see the arrow keys, the round arrow keys. That means that the camera is already saving images on the buffer. So now I will shoot when I see the ball jumping.
Oy.
That's all. Let's see.
Exactly.
I hope I have reacted in a quarter of a second. The camera is still saving images because I have used the fastest sequence. And this is the latest one, 100 images. The camera has taken 100 images. If I go back, let me go back.
Woohoo!
This is the whole sequence, but I want to see if I forgot the first one.
It's levitating, it's magic.
It's so cool, isn't it?
That's so cool. That is so cool. I love that demo. That's so cool.
And this is when the camera, the ball was static, and when I pressed the button, the camera was already in the air. But I have exactly the moment when the ball starts to jump.
I love it. Yeah. Right. Okay. We've got 10 more minutes. I want one of you just to go to the back of the camera, because for Josh, I just want to sort of talk to him about the frame counter limiter, because some people do get a bit confused about what the frame counter limiter is. And if you can switch on in a menu somewhere, there we go. So, Josh, if you look at the screen, Thomas's screen, if you go into SH2 or any of the Pro Captures now, the frame counter limiter is, if you can switch it on for me to say 50, perfect, you can see that graph at the bottom. Basically, the frame counter limiter is the shots before and the shots after added up together. So if your frame counter limiter is on 99, in this instance, it's going to take 50 before and 49 after, but you can change those two parameters by using max frames and pre-shutter that way. So if you change the pre-shutter, you can see now you've got 74, 75, whatever in the pre, and then there's 17 after, but that 99, the frame counter limiter doesn't change, okay? So I always set my frame counter first, because I want to know the maximum amount of frames I'm going to use per image, right? And that's what I do. I always set, well, I want 15 before and 15 after or something like that. So I always tend to set my frame counter first. What about you guys? Do you set your frame counter first, or do you work out your pre-shutter frames first? What's your way of working this? Tito?
Yeah, it depends. It depends on the action, depends on the subject and the shot, because sometimes but probably most of the times we only need, we are looking for exactly the moment when the action occurs, the action happens. So for me, it's more important to have pre-release images than later shots.
Yeah.
Now in my demo right now, I had 80 frames, 80 shots I will never use, because I was looking exactly the picture when the ball starts to jump. So to be sure, I will have saved more images during the pre-release than after. Yeah.
Right. Okay. But do you set your frame counter? Like if I'm going out to, say, take photographs of bumblebees going in and out of a flower, then I tend to have less shots, but if it was a cuckoo coming out of a nest or something, then I would have more shots. So it really does depend on the speed of your subject, doesn't it? And also how many frames in that sequence you need. So it is a bit of working around, Josh, but I hope that has explained frame counter limiter to you. Okay, we've got a few more questions.
I would still say that it depends on how long does the event is happening. Like the flash lightning, which is very fast. Flash lightning, you don't need any images afterwards, after you press the trigger, because it's already too late and the flash and the lightning is not there anymore. Or if it's the bird leaving the nest, for example, because the bird will fly out of the nest. So it's something that happened in certain moment, which you would normally miss. But then you still want to have maybe some more images of the bird flying out of the nest. So
yeah, that's a really, really good point. You're absolutely right. It depends on how long that action is taking place. Like you say, a bolt of lightning is a millionth of a split second, whereas a bird has much more. There's much more time in that event of the reaction, which is a really, really good. Thomas, you were going to show us something.
Yeah, I was going to show one example actually of this. It's not a lightning, but it's something similar. Basically, again, these are a couple of shots from our ambassador Peter Mambosek. This was shot in Galapagos, and there is iguana somewhere on the shot. You probably don't see it, but I will show you where it is. This is where the iguana is sitting. Iguanas, as you know, they are feeding underwater, in the salt water, in the sea. So basically, as they are feeding, they get a lot of salty water in their nostrils and everywhere. So they need to get rid of it. So basically, one of the pictures, which is, let's say, nice to shoot, is iguana which is sneezing, basically. And basically, these are like two shots. These are two shots shot by Peter Mambosek, where the iguana was sneezing. But you can imagine if you as a person sneeze, it's a friction of a second. So it's something that basically you would not be able to shoot with a regular even sequence mode, because you would simply miss it. But with Pro Capture, in this case, you would definitely want to use the high-speed sequential Pro Capture, so the 50 frames per second, I would say, maybe 25 to 50 at least. And in that case, basically, you are able to achieve this type of shots very easily.
Yeah, I've got a picture of a lizard with his tongue cleaning its face, and it's so quick. Your reaction to get that I would never have got that shot without Pro Capture. And I have a shot and his tongue is literally all over his face and covering his eye, and it was that perfect moment, and Pro Capture was there. So like you say, it depends on the actual speed of the event, of the action, and I like that. Okay, let's move on. Kathleen asks, if you use back button focus, does Pro Capture still work?
No.
Yeah.
No, the answer is simple. You need the release button to not the focus, but to activate the Pro Capture. Yeah.
Absolutely. So you can autofocus and get your focus right, but Pro Capture is still on the front shutter button, Kathleen. We hope that helps. Okay, couple of more questions. Frank says, using an OM1 and used to using sequential shooting and having a hard time timing the water impact on birds of prey. Any tips on getting the timing right? I seem to miss the impact. Yet, are you using Pro Capture, Frank? Because this could be what it is now. There is a tendency with Pro Capture in the early days to press too early, isn't there? Sometimes people sort of overreact and press. So there is a little bit of practice, because what you do is you fully press the shutter when the action happens. So in your mind, it seems weird because it seems like you're doing it too late, but you need to, be confident. There's lots of ways you can practice. Both of the guys have showed you how to do a couple of demonstrations so that you get that timing right. I used a strawberry drop it in some water, and you can do that easily on your kitchen counter worktop. Just drop. Don't tell the person when to drop. Just let them drop a strawberry into water, and as soon as you see the strawberry hit the water, you can then press the button. So there are lots of demos you can do at home just to get that practice right, and I think that one is quite important. But if you're using sequential shooting, you should use Pro Capture. Go on, Thomas.
Yeah, just one recommendation maybe. I'm not sure which one Frank is using, but Frank, if you are using 50 frames per second, then slow it down to 25. Because you will be able to catch up, let's say, more seconds into the past prior you fully press the trigger. So definitely go down. Or if you eventually get OM1 Mark II in the future, then you will have even two more options, 12 and 16 frames.
You're absolutely right. Slow it down a bit. I think it's one of those things when you're first starting out. It's really good. Okay, great stuff, guys. We are nearly to the end. A couple of more questions. Can you use OI share with Pro Capture? Yes, you can.
Absolutely.
Yeah, I mean, and again, another joy of the system is, you don't need to be touching the camera. You can sit and wait and use Pro Capture by OI share. So another good reason for downloading the free app. It's incredible. It's not only does it upload your photos and put GPS on image, it does so much stuff. You can do your firmware updates, you can shoot, you can use it as a remote control. The app is absolutely brilliant and one of the best on the market, without a doubt.
Yeah, I will also add, Claire, that you can also use the remote shutter release if it has the half press function.
Yes, exactly that. Couple of more questions. From Pentagram, your honest opinion about the 300mm f4 with a 2x teleconverter and Pro Capture quality hit rate in percentages. Again, it's going to depend on the camera and it's going to depend on the card and all that stuff, right? So talk about the AF. Tomas, do you want to take this one?
I mean, in this case, obviously, I always recommend first using 1.4 teleconverter, 1.4, because the more, let's say, extension you get, the more lenses you get, lens elements you get in front of your original lens. So basically, obviously, it's much easier for you to shoot with 1.4 as for the sharpness, as for the brightness. So from this point of view, if you could use 300mm with 1.4, and that would be enough as for the focal length, then I would recommend use 1.4. 2.0 is okay. I mean, you can still use it, but you need more light, for example. So it depends on the lighting conditions you are shooting in. But from the sharpness point of view, always 1.4 will be sharper than 2.0.
Yeah,
that's simply a physical fact.
Yeah, exactly that. And like you say, I mean, I love the 2x with the 40 to 150 2.8. I think that combination is absolutely spot on, and the images are super sharp. But 300mm has got image sync. It's got everything that will enable you to get the best shots, but there are always limitations with everything, right? Light, exposure, shutter speed, handling. There are so many factors. Which camera are you using? Because obviously if you're using OM1 and OM1 Mark II, we have a completely different autofocus system built in than on the EM range, right? So again, that will make a bit of a difference. 121 autofocus points on older models compared to 1,050 plus on the new cameras. So there's a lot of different factors moving into the new cameras. It's difficult to say a hit rate in percentages, isn't it? But It's a difficult one to pin down with a percentage, I think.
I would also have maybe one little recommendation, and that is, if you look at your portfolio of images and you find out that you are using 300mm with 2.0 converter most of the time, I would recommend looking for a lens with longer focal lengths. Very simply as that. Because always the teleconverter makes the image worse than without the teleconverter. That's a clear fact. Everywhere with all brands, I mean, it simply is as it is. So if you really are shooting 300mm with 2.0 most of the time, really look for longer telephoto lens. So whether it's 150 to 600 or whether it's 150 to 400, depends on really what you are shooting.
Good stuff. Okay, we have one more question and we're over time. We've had a really good audience tonight. There've been so many questions and we haven't able to go through them, but we will, all of us, go in over the next few days and answer the questions. If we didn't get to answer them on camera live during the session, we will go back in the little L's and we will look at those questions and get them answered. So one more question from Greg Bean to end the show. Hi, will Pro Capture work with remote controls? I have an EM1 Mark II and a Velo Freewave Plus remote control. Well, the answer is it works with 99.9% of remotes, doesn't it, guys? Even non-OM ones.
Yes, but as we don't know the Velo, it's difficult to say,
Yeah, I've not heard of that one.
I have no experience, but I will say that remote control has the option, the function of half press. It should work. I think it should work.
Absolutely. So why don't we end the show with a couple of nice images? Who wants to show a couple? Because as I said, we always, it's nice to sort of say goodbye and thank you everyone for joining in. Thomas, have you got a couple of any more images there you want to sort of show us? Because I always love.
I do. I actually prepared this series, which I took very recently myself on one of our workshops, which is this series of an owl, where we were actually having birds of prey, which obviously are kept in captivity. This is not like real wildlife, obviously.
Sure.
But we had clients, and I was there myself as well, to actually try new OM1 Mark II features with 150 to 600 and so on. So basically, this is one setup, one single series of images, obviously taken with SH2, where I slowed down to 16.7, I think, frames per second. And this is basically it. So you can also see the owl starting. And then obviously somewhere around here, I would already start shooting if I didn't use SH2, if I didn't use the Pro Capture SH2. So somewhere around here, I would start getting images. And then obviously I will just, you can choose one of them in the flight. And you can also see that like most of them, they are not developed. Sorry, guys, I just took them out from my card and put them for the screen. So I would probably change slightly the exposure and stuff like that later on when I edit the images. So sorry for that. They are not developed. But this is straight out of the box or out of my card. And as you can see, the fast sequential shooting can actually give you so many images, and all of them are pin sharp on the eye. This is due to the subject detection, because obviously I was using bird subject detection. And as you can see, I mean, if I keep it pressed, it's like the other way around. I mean, yeah, this type of movie, and this is it. So this is basically where you would choose one of the images. Can you hear me, guys?
I will say
yeah, we can hear
you. You have had a bit problem, but we hear you now perfectly. I have a couple of samples just to finish if you want, Claire.
Please do. Yeah, I love it.
I will say it's key to know the behavior. If we are talking about birds, life, we're talking about wildlife. Obviously, it's important to know the behavior of the animals, the behavior of the species. I have a couple of images here. I was in a hide, so I knew I saw this goshawk in the branch, but I knew where he was going to land, but I didn't know when. Pro Capture helped me to capture this this another image when the Ghost Hawk landed into the. There were food there, right? And also in another hide, I had this. How is it in English? Eurasian golden? Is it a golden? Yeah, I think it's a golden. This is a male golden, and this is a male golden and female golden. And it seems in this branch there was some food. We were feeding that those birds, and I was in a hide, and I knew that it's suddenly. I didn't know when, but I did know where the female were going to land to fight with the female. So that's with the Pro Capture. Thanks Pro Capture, I could get those fightings and those pictures.
So
I knew that the female was going
Beautiful.
to fight with the male. That I think it's important to know the behavior of the species. Yeah.
Yeah, fighting.
Male,
fighting
female fighting. It looks like people, right?
Yeah, as
love it.
usual at home, as it is in my home.
Right, guys. I want to say thank you so much to Tito and to Tomas for joining me tonight. We absolutely love these AMA sessions. We will be back next month. A big, massive thank you to Michelle for jumping on last minute and doing the back end. You are an absolute star. But massively thank you to you. Thank you for coming online. Thank you for asking questions. We will be back next month. I hope you enjoyed the show. Lots of love from us, and we'll see you again soon. Take care, everyone.
Thank you all.
See you soon.